Hello and welcome to Mortgage Solutions Television. I'm Victoria Hartley, Group Editor of Mortgage Solutions. Now, our debate today puts the high street mortgage market squarely up against specialists, giving our panel plenty to chew over, given the fascinating outlook this year. From the picture for those ending furlough to the predicted growth of the self-employed market. How can brokers find opportunities and serve their increasingly diverse customers better? These are the questions in front of us. So let me introduce your panel today. We have Craig McKinley, New Business Director at Kensington Mortgages, Vicky Jeffries, Proposition Director at Primis Mortgage Network, and Greg Cunnington, Director of Lender Relationships and New Homes at Alexander Hall. Huge welcome to everybody. At the end of furlough for millions, rising unemployment and the increasing digitisation of mainstream lending make it a potentially very dynamic picture for specialist mortgage lending in 2021. How can brokers capitalise on this sector if the majority of their business is still mainstream? And why should they?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of brokers are thinking, I am mainstream, all of my business is mainstream, I don't deal in the specialist market. But I think there needs to be a readjustment of their mindset and what they're thinking, because what's mainstream now, as we unfold over the next sort of 12 months, is probably going to start to fall into the traditional specialist lenders. So for me, what I would say to brokers is, don't pigeonhole yourself, don't pigeonhole your customers, think broadly. Look at the panels that you've got through your club or your network, because you may well use just your top 10, 15, 20 lenders, but you're probably looking at a panel circa, 80, 90 in the market. So consider all of the options, and that will broaden your horizons in terms of thinking about your customer bank that you've got at the moment and your potential customer bank, because it is going to change. There's no doubt that the fallout from furlough, payment holidays, the self-employed challenges that we've got will push customers into different categories. So I think my first point is, don't feel afraid, don't pigeonhole yourself, say yes to customers, say yes, let's have a conversation, let's see what's available. And really, for brokers to feel confident, they need to think about their own personal education of what lenders are offering. So to, work with the lenders, lenders like Kensington and some of the other specialist ones, to really get their heads around what the product offerings are, what the criteria is, what customers fit where, so they're pre-armed and pre-prepared to be able to have really strong conversations with customers. Because the overriding factor here is that customers need brokers, because brokers are the key to access to the whole of the market, not just thinking about the top 5 lenders that are, the heavy-weighted ones, shall we say.
And the other thing I'd say is, for me, it's a question about strategy as a broker and looking to future-proof your business. So clearly, I think there's an expectation that there'll be a lot of people impacted by COVID for the next couple of years. Certainly in the short term, we expect a lot of those to find their way into the specialist market from the mainstream market, but also longer term. So I think if you look at things like the aggregators coming into the market, trying to do the brokers' jobs, direct lenders trying to take customers direct, etc., robo brokers, digital brokers, etc., they will all, and what we've seen so far is they will all focus on really simple remortgage business and really simple high street and really simple PT business. What it's really hard for them to replicate is specialist business. So not only is I'm expecting specialists to be the growth engine of the market in the short term, but also long term, I think it future-proofs the broker's business, because the easier, more high street business could well go to aggregators or the digital players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all I wanted to say is, agreeing with everything everyone says, the number of clients who fit that kind of vanilla, I hate that phrase, but criteria is going to get lower with everything we've already discussed in terms of furlough, self-employed issues, all the challenges in the economy. We've also got a panel of over 100 lenders, and last year I think we used most of them. And so brokers need to look at things and take advantage of all of the various lender options that are out there, because the whole point is we should be wanting to help every client who comes through our door, and that's going to get more challenging But that should be seen as a positive for the industry because we're here to help people. So as long as we're upskilling ourselves and having the knowledge and understanding of all those options available, this should be a good opportunity for us to kind of show the value of an intermediary and just help more people with those lender options available to us.
Unemployment and the predicted economic downturn are drivers for the self-employed market, estimated to be around 15% or 5 million of the UK working population. How far can this market grow is the question, and how can brokers pick up more self-employed business?
Well, I think it's a really interesting time for self-employed. So typically what we've seen in the last two recessions is that you see coming out of a recession a big growth in the amount of people starting to be self-employed. So people will leave employed roles and set up their own businesses, which is really positive. So now at the start of the century, about 12% of the UK employees were 12% of people working were self-employed. Now that's over 15%. In just a few years, and that all the evidence is that's going to continue to grow. If you look at things like, apart from COVID, things like the gig economy, so a lot of this was happening anyway. So I'm expecting that to continue to grow. It is over half of Kensington's business anyway, even though it's only 15% of the broader economy. It's something we really specialise in. We really like self-employed business, so I do expect it to grow further. So in terms of what a broker can do, I think get a good reputation. If people know this is the guy who can kind of help with self-employed business, that's really useful. Word of mouth, I think, change perception. People do think, oh, if I'm self-employed, it's really, really hard to get a mortgage. I need 3 or 4 years worth of accounts. And that's just not the case. We'll do 1 year's accounts. You know, get out onto social media. You've got to try and help change those perceptions because people do think that it's impossible. And actually, it's very, very possible.
I think definitely on the self-employed side of things, if you think about customer opportunities, there's definitely like very key populations in certain sectors that naturally would gather. So Craig's point on social media, and any of you that have got a social media strategy, it's worth trying to think about how you infiltrate particular groups like IT contractors, for example, or other particular groups of people that are in sectors, because then you can work on your referral model, which is going to be really key. I think for anybody self-employed at the moment, you maybe want to infiltrate any groups that are talking about IR35, because that is obviously the hot topic and there's lots of people talking and supporting each other on that. So, you know, I'm not saying brokers should be tax experts, absolutely not. But it's if people are talking about something that's relevant to a particular sector, there's your opportunity as a professional broker to, you know, infiltrate that group, get some referrals and work on your customer base. But, you know, as Craig said, self-employed, you know, more so than any group are going to need advice and need the support of a broker. So don't feel afraid to ask for those referrals because they're going to have very limited options elsewhere, aren't they?
Yeah, so I think the points Vicky's just made about advice for self-employed clients, that really is the absolute crux for me. Even a scenario that you would have considered very clean, very vanilla self-employed situation 18 months ago. Now, if you put that in with one of the big lenders, there's going to be a manual assessment. They want to see business bank statements. They'll look at conduct. There may be LTV restrictions. So anybody self-employed not speaking to an intermediary is kind of setting themselves up, unfortunately, potentially for a bit of a fall at the moment. And what I would say as well, from the intermediary perspective, it's really important. We're quite positive about the self-employed industry and clients and their mortgage options. I'm sure Vicky sees the same, but we see a lot of clients who are really fearful that they either can't get a mortgage or cannot remortgage because there's been a lot of negative press stories about how lenders are reacting to self-employed individuals. But actually, thanks to the specialist lending market, we're seeing a lot of success stories. There's a lot of common sense that can be adapted if you go to the correct lender for the correct client circumstances. It's all packaged correctly. So I think it's important that intermediaries are promoting that, whether it's through their social media, whether it's through case studies on their website, which we like to do, because it's good to get some positivity out there for self-employed individuals. And what we're seeing, it's quite old-fashioned. I think Craig mentioned it, that there's a lot of personal referral activity from that sector. Because once somebody's mortgage is okay, they're telling all of their self-employed friends, hey, look, don't worry, actually, there's an intermediary here who they specialise in self-employed clients. It's not as bad as we feared. You've got to speak to these guys. So I think it's worth intermediaries remembering just to go a bit old school as well and make sure you're asking for referrals from your self-employed client bank.
And I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up there just for now. But please Look out for the next segment, which will be out very, very shortly. Huge thank you to all our panelists, and we will see you next time on Mortgage Solutions Television.